To recap on what we established about the Van Allen radiation belts, the belts are composed of protons and electrons with energies as high as 100 million electron volts. Back in January 2005, a sunspot called NOAA 720 exploded. This flare produced protons in the same energy range as the Van Allen belts, and NASA summed it up in these statements.
The January 20th proton storm was by some measures the biggest since 1989. It was particularly rich in high-speed protons, packing more than 100 million electron volts of energy. Such protons can burrow through 11 centimeters of water. A thin-skinned spacesuit would have offered little resistance.
They also stated,
solar protons accelerated to nearly light speed by the explosion reached the Earth-Moon system minutes after the flare, the beginning of a days-long proton storm.
This contradicted Jim Olberg's statement of astronauts having hours, if not days or more, to get clear from the radiation.
Solar flares are one of those things that you have to take a calculated risk on because they will zap you with radiation once they get to you, but you've got a long time, hours if not a day or more, to either come back to Earth, find a shielded place, or prepare yourself.
This also conflicted with the testimony of Jay Winderley, who, when defending Olberg's claim of putting the bulk of the ship towards the incoming radiation, denied that solar particles could travel to near light speed.
Solar events cause their damage through energetic particles ejected from the sun. These particles do not travel at the speed of light, or even at an appreciable fraction of it. They take many hours, and sometimes even days, to reach Earth from the sun. The energetic particles are the part of the solar flare that does the damage. Those are the components that travel much slower than light and are to be shielded against by placing the bulk of the spacecraft between the particle front and the astronauts.
Solar protons accelerated to nearly light speed by the explosion reached the Earth-Moon system minutes after the flare.
These particles do not travel at the speed of light, or even at an appreciable fraction of it.
It seems it is not only solar radiation that travels to near light speed. In December 1998, CNN reported, new observations by an array of satellites show changes in the Earth's magnetic field can accelerate electrons in the belts to nearly the speed of light, transforming them into what some researchers describe as killer electrons. Under those conditions, the charged particles can pierce a sheet of aluminium a half-inch thick, possibly resulting in a catastrophic accumulation of particles in the sensitive electronics of hundreds of orbiting satellites. Many satellites up there now, and future spacecraft like the space station, have the potential to be severely impaired by light-speed electrons, David Baker said. Shielding people and hardware in space is expensive and heavy, and the discovery may compel space engineers to design orbiting systems differently. Gee, I wonder how the service module's bulk managed to shield the astronauts travelling through this flood of near-light-speed particles. Returning to the current affairs, NASA would go on to state,
an astronaut caught outside when the storm hit would have gotten sick, says Francis Cucinoda, NASA's radiation health officer at the Johnson Space Center. At first he'd feel fine, but a few days later symptoms of radiation sickness would appear. Vomiting, fatigue, low blood counts. These symptoms might persist for days.
Although Cucinoda claims that moonwalking astronauts exposed to NOAA 720 would only have received 50 rem, the symptoms he's talking about begin to show at double that dosage. Because both the belts and NOAA 720 are composed of 100 MeV protons, this confirms Van Allen's research that indicated that astronauts passing through the belts would receive 100 rem per hour.
Our measurements show that the maximum radiation level as of 1958 is equivalent to between 10 and 100 roentgens per hour, depending on the still undetermined proportion of protons to electrons.
And now, for the funny ascot quote of the week.
In their continuing efforts to distort this research, the propagandists have gone as far as alleging that the deadly radiation of space is routinely transversed on a daily basis. For example, when S. Vector stalked me onto the Let'sRoll911.org forums, he told Phil Jahan,
"You know that DirecTV satellite you get your HBO and Showtime from? It lives in the middle of the Van Allen belts, and has been there, operating happily for several years. Its shielding is very moderate, some aluminum and ceramic material. If the belts were strong enough to fry humans like hot dogs, imagine what they do to electronics over a period of several years."
I asked him if he even knows the respective altitudes for the belts and the DirecTV satellite. S. Vector claimed he did know, but instead of providing his figures, all he did was call me names.
"You're just a retarded chimp like the rest of your paranoid friends, aren't you? Dumb fuck. Are you really so fucking dense that you need it repeated every 6 hours? God damn, you're a stupid lying little fuck, aren't you? Were your parents cousins? You are without a doubt the stupidest, most cowardly little girly man I've ever seen in my entire life. I'll bet you squat to pee, don't you? I'm right, aren't I? You squat, just like a girl when you have to piss, and admit it. God damn, I feel sorry for your parents. Your mother should have gone with her first instinct, and drowned you in the fucking bathtub when she had the chance. You are a loser, a coward, a liar, and an ugly little cunt with a nappy-ass pubic hair mustache to boot. Don't ever forget that."
And when Phil Jahan asked him to remove this profanity,
"Fuck off. I've already used up your sorry-ass excuse for a discussion board for what I needed it for. Just be advised that you have a proven liar in your midst, named Jarrah White. Don't ever forget that. Now you can go back to discussing what brand of box cutters were used to slash innocent stewardesses' throats. I'm sure the debates provide you with great whack-off material. Sick 9/11th conspiratard fucks."
according to the Excel Preliminary Book of Physics by Neville Warren, the inner radiation belt begins at 1,000 kilometers above the Earth. The outer belt ends at 25,000 kilometers. The DirecTV satellite, however, has an altitude of nearly 36,000 kilometers. This is a good 10,000 kilometers outside the radiation belts. A long time after the Let's Roll 911 fiasco, S. Vector put his foot in his mouth when I made him aware of John Malden's 2-meter shield proposal for solar and cosmic radiation.
Then what type and thickness of shielding would a geosynchronous satellite need in order to protect its delicate electronics? In case you don't know, they orbit at 22,300 miles, right in the middle of the outer Van Allen belt.
22,300 miles corresponds to nearly 36,000 kilometers, more than 10,000 kilometers beyond the end of the outer belt. To say the least, the propagandist geometry for the Van Allen belts is way off. And you don't have to take my word that satellites don't operate in the Van Allen belts. On March 9, 2005, New Scientist, the world's #1 science and technology news service, released an article called "Lightning Linked to Gap in Radiation Belts." Lightning bursts in clouds are responsible for clearing the enigmatic safe zone for satellites lying between two donut-shaped radiation belts surrounding the Earth, say NASA researchers. The discovery, announced on Tuesday, surprised space physicists who had not expected an atmospheric phenomenon to affect a region 10,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface. The Van Allen radiation belts were the first big surprise of the space age when US Explorer satellites discovered them in 1958. A pair of donut-shaped rings consist of high-energy particles from solar outbursts and cosmic rays. The inner ring extends from 1,000 to 7,000 kilometers above the equator, while the outer ring starts at 13,000 kilometers and extends to 25,000 kilometers. The trapped radiation imperils both humans and spacecraft, so satellites and astronauts fly above or below the radiation belts, or in the gap between them.